Welcome to the Naked Party Time podcast, where we get real and raw about life, leadership, and love,
while having lots of fun along the way.
So what do you say? Are you ready to get naked?
Let's do it.
Sabrina, what are we talking about today?
You're going to make me say the word.
I'm going to make you say the word. We have to say it all through the podcast. What is it?
Vulnerability. I cannot say it.
And that's how we're starting today, folks. Specifically, we are talking about authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability, which are the keys to thriving in every relationship. In fact, this one truth is driving our conversation today. Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. We're starting hot.
How come I couldn't say victory?
Well, welcome to episode number 9 of the Naked Party Time podcast. My name is Jeff Manis. I'll be your host today. I'm joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Sabrina. How are you feeling today?
Pretty good right now.
All right. Hello to everybody joining us on YouTube as well. Glad that you are with us. It's date night once again. We've transitioned to recording podcast on date night. And what are we doing for date night tonight? At least what can we talk about on air?
Yeah, we can't talk about everything
for date night.
about date night, but we are watching Hallmark movies. Woo! Today, Jeff said, "You want to watch a Hallmark movie?" And I said, "You never have to ask me that question. It will always be yes."
For some reason, I started watching Hallmark movies recently.
And it's been awesome.
It's been fun. We're going to watch one tonight. What you already know what we're going to watch?
No.
I'm going to let you decide because you know like all of them. So
I have a bunch recorded.
So Sabrina, what's the title of today's episode?
Today's episode is titled The ATV of Relationships.
I want an ATV. You want an all-terrain vehicle? The ATV, meaning the all-terrain vehicle of relationships. That's what I'm calling it. This is something that I thought of a couple months ago and told you that I thought it might be a good podcast for us to walk through. ATV stands for authentic, transparent, and the word Sabrina can't say, vulnerable. Authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. Without these three things, I don't think you'll thrive in relationships, not just marriage.
Yeah.
I think just navigating relationships in general, if you want to thrive, you need to be authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. And we'll talk about the differences here coming up. As we're going to see, not every relationship needs every one of these to thrive.
Right.
But your most intimate relationships do. And I even think if you want to thrive in relationships in general, you need to become good at all three of these. So before we dive into the content for today, I want to remind everyone again of a trip to Israel that I will be leading in March of 2022. Yes, 2022. I know it's a ways away, but it gives you some time to plan and prepare and save your money for it. Lord willing, we'll be doing that, and I hope we passed a lot of the COVID stuff by then, but it gives you some time to plan and pray about it. If you have any questions, you can email me at hello@jeffmanis.com or go to my website, jeffmanis.com. There's a Israel 2022 link. Just click on that. Get all the information you need. Specifically, it is March 28th through April 7th of 2022. It's an 11-day trip to Israel, 9 days literally on land in Israel, doing the touring and walking where Jesus walked, seeing what Jesus saw. It is a faith-changing experience. It's worth every penny that you save. It is expensive, but I think it's worth it. And I can't wait to go back. It'll be my third time to go. Sabrina's planning on going as well. It'll be her second time. Sabrina, if you can remember back to when we went in 2017, what was your favorite part of Israel when we went?
Well, I had several favorite places. En-Gedi is one of them, the Garden Tomb. And then I just remember how it, I felt like I had never read my Bible before.
Yeah. Came to life.
And I've been a Christian for a long time, but man, it just really changed the way I look at the word, how I read the word today. Yep. When I can read the word in my head, I'm like, I've been there. Yeah. I can see what En-Gedi looks like when David's talking about it in the Psalms, and the Garden Tomb, and when Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane,
the Garden of Gethsemane is awesome.
And he bled. He was so full of anxiety, and man, those pictures are so vivid in my head. It's life-changing for sure.
En-Gedi, I think, is my favorite place as well. And I think one of the best parts is coming back and then reading the scriptures and you're just doing your normal Bible reading, you're like,
Yeah.
holy cow, I was there. Like I stood there.
Yeah.
It is incredible. I'd love for you guys to go. Again, I'm holding up the brochure. If you're watching on YouTube, you just go to my website, jeffmanis.com, and you have plenty of time to save and prepare. Part of that trip is during spring break for the Cheyenne people. So if
Yeah.
you live in Cheyenne, you're part of Element Church, 7 days of that, or the 5 days of it is spring break week. So that works out good there. We also want to answer a listener question. Sabrina, who is the winner of the $10 Starbucks card this time, and what is their question?
The winner in question come from Caleb, and Caleb asked a great question. Why is evil and suffering in creation?
So why don't you go ahead and answer that for us, Sabrina?
Well, if I can read your notes, I can answer it.
It is a great question.
It's a hard question because it's not black and white.
It's not.
It's
not
gray.
It's not an easy answer.
No.
It's one I actually did a whole sermon on this 2 Sundays ago at Element. So from the time this episode drops on October 26th, 2 Sundays ago, I did a sermon on evil, pain, and suffering. You can check that out online if you haven't yet. But this is probably the number one question or number one critique of Christianity, that if God's real, why is there evil, pain, and suffering in the world? And it's a great question, one we have to really wrestle with and have a response for. We can't just say, well, it just is what it is. There is a reason. I'm not sure I have an answer that will suffice. As I said in my sermon, even if there was an absolute answer, suffering still exists. Even if we know why, it's still there. Like it still hurts. But when you get down to it, the why is there evil and suffering from the Christian perspective, which is all I can speak to, it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. That God created the world, and in every part of creation, he said it was good. No sin, no evil, no pain, no suffering. The world was as it should be, which we can't even fathom that, an unbroken world. But also a part of creation was free will. That God created humans with the capacity to love, and love is a choice. I have to choose to love you. You have to choose to love me. And we both have to choose to love God or not love God. So God put a tree in the middle of the Garden of Eden. And he told Adam and Eve, you're free to eat from every tree there is except this one tree. If you eat from this tree, you'll die. And as I think we all know, Adam and Eve eventually ate the fruit from that tree. And not only did they now have an expiration date on their life, but when sin entered the world, it broke everything. Everything was broken. So before sin, before the fall of Adam and Eve, there was no sickness, no disease, no pain, no death, no hurricanes, no wildfires. My goodness, Lord, we're asking you to send rain to these wildfires we're experiencing in our own region. No natural disasters, like sin broke everything. And here's what we don't always talk about as God's solution to all of it, because God does have a solution. It may not be in our time frame, what we want, but we talk in the church a lot about God's solution to sin, that he sent Jesus to die for our sins, to forgive us, to make us new and spend eternity with him. And one day our bodies will be free from all sickness, pain, disease, tears, all that kind, all suffering. But also when he died and rose again, he did that to make the world right one day. That one day the world's going to be right. That when he returns, he's going to make a new heaven and a new earth where we will live with him forever. So the everything wrong will one day be made right. Everything. Every broken thing made whole. That is the good news, a new heaven and a new earth. So I think we also need to talk about that in our faith, that Jesus doesn't just solve the sin problem. He solves the broken world problem one day. He'll make everything right. Lastly, I'll end with this. It's not original to me. It's from Andy Stanley, and it's brilliant. In addressing people who want evil and suffering to be gone, he says this, so you want God to wipe out all evil, pain, and suffering. And most people say, well, yes, I want God to do that. To which Andy says, well, do you want him to start with you or me?
Wow.
That's sobering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the reality is all of us, like every single one of us, have done something evil. We've caused pain, and we've brought suffering to someone in this in this world. So if God were to wipe it all out, none of us would be left.
Wow.
Is that a great way to look at it?
Yeah, that is. It's very eye-opening.
That we often want God to end all the suffering and the evil outside of us.
Right.
We don't want him to limit at us. But again, because he loves us, he gives us free will. And then he is overwhelmingly patient with us until he comes again and makes everything right. And by faith in him, we'll be able to experience that. So anything you want to add or clarification you need? Was that clear?
No, I thought that was really, really good, because there is no black and white answer, like we said before you started answering this question. It's not as simple as sometimes our human minds wish it would be.
Yep. And again, in my sermon on Sunday, I presented what are the responses of the major religions of the world, even the response of atheism to evil, pain, and suffering. Like there's options out there.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the Christian response is the best option. And I don't just say that because I'm a pastor.
I think it gives you go back and listen to that sermon and you go through all those religions, like the Christian response is the one that has hope.
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody else really had hope.
Yep.
But I love that in that sermon you said that all these different religions, you still have to have faith. Even being an atheist, you still have faith because you're believing in no God.
Yep. You have
and
to
that
have
still
faith
takes
that there is
something.
no God. Yep.
Yeah, because you're still believing in something you can't see.
Yep. You can't say that you're not a person of faith. Everyone's a person of faith.
Yeah. That was really good.
Your faith just might be in the fact that I don't believe there's a God, but that's still a belief.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So today we're talking about vulnerability. And by the way, let me say, Caleb, great question.
Yes.
I hope you listen. I hope that's helpful. I hope you watch the sermon on Sunday as well. And it's not an uncommon question.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask it. I mean, there's things that like even these wildfires, just today we learned that Estes Park's being evacuated. People are losing property and losing life. Like it makes me ask why. Why is this? It would seem so easy just to send some rain, right?
We're begging God for rain or snow, and he hasn't opened up the skies yet, and we can't understand that.
And that at some point, we just have to trust that the Lord knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And there may not be a reason why. We trust God.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we're talking about vulnerability, Sabrina's favorite word. And I'm convinced of this. Say it again. Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. But really, there are some layers to vulnerability.
Yeah.
And this was super helpful for me. Just came to me one day. This whole idea of your level of victory is determined by your level of vulnerability. It got me started thinking through this whole subject. The 3 layers form our acrostic, and they serve as the all-terrain vehicle for relationships: authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. You're not going to say it again, are you?
Nope. Good job.
So here are the layers if we want to thrive in our relationships, okay? And we'll put these in the show notes as well. Maybe we'll throw them on social media too. But we need to be authentic with everyone, transparent to some, and vulnerable to someone.
Yeah, that's good. Repeat it.
Authentic to everyone, transparent with some, and vulnerable to someone. So let's start with the first one, authentic to everyone. This one is probably the hardest one in our social media age. Like I think people, me and you included, really, really struggle with this one.
Yeah.
It sure seems like, and I've been guilty of this as well, but it sure seems like very few people are truly authentic on social media. Social media is a highlight reel of life.
We choose what goes on there. We adjust things. We do all sorts of things to make it look amazing.
Yep. We portray marriages, lives, emotions that aren't real.
Yeah.
They're not real. Just in the last several months, I don't want to keep on harping on this, but it's just right there in my view, but we've seen some high profile marriages end in divorce, and just based on their social media leading up to their announcement of divorce, you would have thought they had incredible marriages. Like there was no sign of trouble just based on social media. I think that's more common than we want to admit.
Well, and one couple who seemed very authentic and transparent, and even the last word, I think that was a shock out of the couples we've seen.
Yeah.
Because it appeared like they were.
Yeah. And
so
they were even,
how do you know who to trust?
I'm going to be careful here, but
Yeah.
they were even speaking as if they were.
Yeah.
Teaching as if they were. That's hard.
So that when you're following somebody and trying to live as they do, that trust is broken.
Yeah.
So how can you trust anything you see on social media?
So, and I want to be careful too, because authentic, like we're talking about these marriages that we knew of online or whatever, but authentic doesn't mean that you should tell the whole world
right.
that your marriage is struggling, if it is, or that you had a moral failure or whatever it is. It just means you should not be portraying the opposite.
Right.
Like, don't portray this great thriving marriage if you don't have a great thriving marriage.
Right.
Like, just don't post anything.
Yeah. Don't say anything about it.
That's authentic.
Yeah.
Also, this is mostly related to social media as well. There is a difference between complaining about your life and being authentic about your life. I think some people think they're being authentic and they're just complaining.
Yeah.
They don't like the way something's going on in the world, and so they're just blasting social media about it, and they claim that's authentic. It can be, but that's not authentic. You just want attention. When people complain, they want attention. When they are authentic, they want change. And that's the difference. That was really good, by the way.
Yeah, that was really good.
When people complain, they want attention. When they're being authentic, they truly want change. They're wanting something they want the change, or they want help in changing something. Yeah. So authentic with everyone. It's just being honest when someone asks, how are you doing? And if things aren't good, you say it. Like, you don't have to say what things aren't good.
Right.
That we'll get to that here in a little bit with the vulnerable one, but be authentic. Like, we don't have anyone to impress. If you're not doing well and someone says, hey, how are you doing? I'm actually not doing well, but thanks for asking. That's authentic.
Right.
And then if they say, well, what's going on? I'd rather not talk about it. I just wanted to be authentic. That's what we can do. And I don't think we do that very good.
No, we get into the habit of just saying, good, how are you?
Exactly.
Good. How are you? Good.
Yep.
And then you walk away. I mean, I'm guilty of it too.
Oh, me too. I'm not picking on anybody.
No. So sometimes, depending on who it is, I'll say, I'm okay. And no further questions are asked, but I'm trying to even be aware that you're doing that.
Yep.
Just saying good and moving on.
Yep.
So that you're paying attention.
Yep. And really, I think and this is going to transition really well into the next layer here, but when we're truly being authentic, or when we're truly being transparent, this was the next one, I think we will better be able to be authentic. So the fact that you have people in your life that you're transparent with, I think you're able to be authentic with everyone.
Yeah.
Because you're now talking to someone else about what's going on. So let's transition there so it makes sense. The second layer of vulnerability is to be transparent. So once you're truly living authentic with everyone, this one I think will just more naturally happen. And notice, you shouldn't be transparent with everyone, but with some.
Yeah.
Authentic with everyone, transparent with some. Transparency requires trust. So this can't just be anyone. It's got to be kind of your inner circle in life. And transparency goes a step further than authenticity. I'm just going to stick with marriage here as the example, since I brought this one up before in the previous section. But if you are experiencing some difficulty in your marriage, things aren't going like they should in some area, maybe it's communication, intimacy, finances, parenting, whatever it is, when you're being authentic, you're just going to not portray something opposite.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to portray that I have a great intimate marriage if I'm not having a great intimate marriage. Transparency, though, is saying to those people you trust, it's now a layer deeper. Hey, there's some things going on in my marriage that aren't going well. They aren't where they should be. Authentic might acknowledge something is off in life. Transparency acknowledge what area of life is off.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me say that again. Authenticity.
Oh, wait,
that's
wait.
my word.
You can't say that word? Wow.
That's my word. Authenticity might acknowledge that something is off in your life, but transparency acknowledges what area of life is off.
Yeah, that's
hey, there's
good.
something's not right in my marriage. And that might be as far as it goes. But You've spoken it.
But now the person you've spoken it to can now go to Jesus
Yep.
and be like, okay, there's something off in this marriage, and be able to pray a little
Yep.
bit more specific
Yep.
for you.
Or-
And then check in. Hey,
Yes.
how's your marriage doing?
Yep. Or whatever it is. Hey, something's not right with my emotions. Things aren't going well financially for me. Things aren't going well in my purity. Whatever. You don't have to get specific, but you've acknowledged now. Transparency is acknowledging what area of life is off.
It's the subject.
You shouldn't do that with everyone.
Yeah.
But you should do it with some. So again, I'm struggling financially, whatever it is. No specifics are shared, but now you've peeled back the layer just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And again, it's shared with people you trust, with some, not with everyone. But if you're already living an authentic life, they're not going to be surprised.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool to think about?
Mm-hmm.
That if you're actually being authentic with everyone, then when you're transparent with the some, they're not shocked.
Yeah.
Because you've not been portraying publicly something different than what's happening internally.
Yeah, that's true.
So it makes being transparent easier when you're already being authentic. Mm-hmm. It's truly the ATV, the all-terrain vehicle. It takes you everywhere in relationships that you need to go if you do all three of these.
So we need to make sure our highlight reel
Yes.
is as honest as we want it to be, but we don't want any underlying lies
Yeah.
in our highlight reel.
Yep.
And you can do that.
It's very easy to do that. And again, I know it's hard because we shouldn't go out on social media and air all of our dirty laundry.
Right.
But on the flip side, we see people all the time
Yeah.
that we know what they're portraying, that people would be shocked if they knew what was behind the curtain. Just put it that way.
Yeah.
And there, again, we'll be the first to admit there's probably some things in our own life that people could say the same thing.
Oh, sure.
'Cause it's hard to know what to share publicly and what not to. But authentic,
Do your best.
being real.
The
Yeah,
best
do
you
your
can.
best to be real.
Yeah.
Transparent with some. Do you have trusted people that you are transparent with, that you're sharing the areas of life that are not going well? And then most everyone can do the first one, authentic. It's hard, but we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always do it, but we can. Some people will live with transparency. Sadly, I think in the church and in Christianity, we struggle with this one the most.
Yeah.
Because we believe the lie that we can't let anyone know about how we're really doing.
And the lie after that, because nobody else
Yeah.
is experiencing what I'm experiencing. The enemy will keep you trapped in your darkness and tell you you are the only one feeling this
Yep.
way.
Yeah.
And that is a lie from hell. We
Yep.
cannot believe that.
Yep. So in the church, we hide our sin, we hide our struggles, our problems, our weaknesses, and when we hide them, they just grow in the darkness.
Yes, we have to shine
Gotta
the
bring
light.
the light.
Yes.
Bring them to light. So this third one is where very few people want to go. I think we in Christianity get stuck at the transparency one. The third one, very few people want to go there because it's hard. Mm-hmm. And what is it, Sabrina? It's being vulnerable. What is it?
I can't even say it in my head
That's
correctly.
so funny. Okay.
You know how you can say some words in your head
Yeah.
correctly, but they don't. I can't even say it in my head correctly.
I can't say prescription when I go to the Walgreens or whatever.
Yeah. So,
I don't know why. I can say it right here.
How
prescription.
can we get prescription into our?
I stutter when I say it. Literally, if I go to Walgreens, you know this because you make fun of me. If I go to Walgreens and go to the window and say, I have a prescription to pick up for Jonah or whatever it is, I literally can't say prescription. I practice it in the car. You've seen me do this.
Yes, I have.
So that's my word.
It just doesn't come up in a podcast.
This third one, very few people want to go there, and it's vulnerability. Authentic with everyone, transparent with some, and the last one is vulnerable with someone. Not everyone should know everything about you,
Yeah.
but someone should.
Yeah.
Not everyone should know everything about you, but someone should. If you're married, you should be vulnerable with your spouse. But you need someone beside your spouse who you are vulnerable with as well. And if you're married, that should be someone of the same sex.
Yes.
So, like, I should not have someone I'm sharing all the parts of my life with, it's a woman.
Right.
That would not be
You're just
appropriate.
opening up the door for the enemy to walk right in and tempt you. And don't think, oh, it won't happen to me.
Man, yeah.
Yes, it
Yep.
will.
So it needs to be someone of the same sex.
Yes.
If you're married, someone besides your spouse. And this layer of vulnerability goes to that final step in this ATV of relationships. So sticking with the marriage example, we're just going to stick with that one.
Yeah.
Again, being authentic means you're just not portraying something that isn't real. You're just being who you are. Don't portray the opposite of what's actually behind the curtain. If you're having some struggles in your marriage, don't pretend like you're not by portraying the opposite.
Yeah.
Transparency means there's now a group of people that you trust, that you let them in on the struggle. So we're struggling with some things in our marriage. I just want you to pray about it or know about it, whatever it is. Doesn't go further than that. You're just now being real with, hey, my marriage, there's something in my marriage that's off. Mm-hmm. I'm just letting you know. Vulnerable is this. You get specific. Mm-hmm. Hey, we argue all the time about whatever, fill in the blank. We can't agree on what to do with our child in this area. We just cannot agree in our parenting. Our communication never seems to be on. Like we're always going back and forth. Our communication is off. We aren't experiencing intimacy the way we know we should. Like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is getting into the nitty-gritty, the dark parts, the hard parts of life. And you can apply this to every area of life too. Authentic with everyone, transparent with some, vulnerable to someone.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. That thing you don't want anyone else to know about, that thing you're not willing to share with anyone, you will never have victory until you're vulnerable with someone about it.
Man, that is so true. We have to shine the light in. And sometimes just telling somebody about it and shine the light in will make a world of difference.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the enemy no longer has power over you when you do that. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. And if you're married, like your spouse might know what this vulnerable part of your life is, but until you let someone outside of your marriage know, there's no accountability to fix it. Mm-hmm. You have to tell someone. If you're not going to be vulnerable, you will not have victory.
Yeah.
It can't happen. And this is true. So we use marriage, but it's true for anything. Like, hey, I can't stop spending money on this, whatever it is. Hey, I am in so much debt I can't pay it back. Mm. Hey, I can't stop looking at porn. I mean, you fill in the blank. You can go every area of life. If you are not vulnerable with someone, you are not going to find victory. And the devil will convince you that you should not tell someone.
Oh, man.
But you need to tell someone.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. In marriage, I think we see a picture of true God-intended intimacy in verse 25 of Genesis. So in Genesis 2:24, it says, "For this reason a man will leave his father and mother, will be joined to his wife, and the two will be united into one flesh." And then verse 25 says this, "Now the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame." That's true intimacy and vulnerability.
Yeah.
To bear oneself before another, and there's no shame, no condemnation, no sin. And again, this is not just a sexual thing, this verse. In a marriage relationship, it's also spiritual.
Yes.
Spiritually, bearing one's soul to the other, emotionally, physically, mentally. It's not hiding anything from your spouse, anything. It's sharing all your struggles, all your doubts, all your hurts, all your hangups, all your fears, all your weaknesses, all your desires, all your disappointments, all your pain, all your past, all of your insecurities, being naked and fully exposed before the other person and feeling no shame. Come
That's
on.
so good.
Like I got goosebumps saying that. That's what every marriage should have, and it's what every intimate friendship should have.
Yeah.
That we can have that with our friends too. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the sexual piece would not be there, but all the other things can be there. And here's how you know the difference between being vulnerable and being transparent. This was so good. It's from Morgan Cron, who wrote the book. What's the book that he wrote?
Road Back to You.
Road Back to You, based on the Enneagram. And he was on the Carey Nieuwhof podcast, and he started talking about vulnerability. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And he said this: vulnerability should make you a bit nervous. Your heart rate will increase. You'll have a bit of sweat on your upper lip, and you might even feel queasy. Being transparent will feel a lot more calculated. When we're transparent, we're sharing only what we want to reveal. When we're being authentic, or when we're being vulnerable, we're sharing everything.
Yeah.
Holding nothing back.
We're sharing sometimes things we've never said out loud.
Yes. And when it's truly the most healthy, you're sharing it and there's no shame.
Yeah.
There might be fear because we're human.
Yeah.
But when you have that trusted relationship with that vulnerable someone, that intimate someone, there's no shame and no condemnation back, which is awesome. So he went on to say that transparency isn't a bad thing. It's just not always the best thing. Don't tell yourself you're being vulnerable when you're actually being transparent or authentic. That was really good.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people believe they're being vulnerable and they're not.
Yeah.
They're holding things back. So authentic with everyone, transparent with some, vulnerable with someone. And friends, I want you to have that someone.
Yeah, me too.
Like, who is your someone? Like part of this whole podcast idea for Sabrina, not like this episode, the whole podcast was for us to be authentic and transparent. There might be a few occasions we get vulnerable. There won't be many where we're truly vulnerable on here because this may not be appropriate. But with most things, we're not going to do that. We're going to be authentic and transparent for sure. But we both have someones in our life. We both have people that we are vulnerable with. You were even saying before we started that you're probably vulnerable with too many people.
I really am. I'm pretty much an open book, but
like I have someone in my life who I can and have told everything to, and it's amazing. And you have someone in your life.
Yeah, it's super freeing.
Yep, that you have told everything to. Very difficult things, things that we've struggled with in our own marriage relationship that we'll eventually talk about here on the podcast. But there's nothing hidden between you and your someone.
Yeah.
And there's nothing hidden between me and my someone.
Yeah.
And we both have those people outside of our marriage that we're expressing our hurts, our pains, our struggles, our disappointments, our desires. We're expressing those things to with no condemnation and no shame. And
I think we're that way with each other as well.
Yes.
Not for the whole 23 years we've been marriage, but definitely in the last
couple of years.
Yeah, 5 years. Yep. At least the last 5 years. When Ian was talking about how you start to feel when we did the emotion.
Yeah, the anxiety podcast.
Yes. Oh my word. Oh, I was already crying before the podcast started because I knew what I was going to be talking about, but I was so sweaty and nervous, and I knew I was going to bare my soul to people I don't know. I don't know who listens to this.
Yep.
So when we finished that podcast, I remember saying, that was the ATV podcast right there.
Yep.
But if only for the one. So sometimes I feel like being authentic, transparent, and vulnerable is that wasn't too bad.
You got it.
Is like, I mean, as a pastor and a pastor's wife, we are put into those positions sometimes to lead the way in that. And so we may do it, or I know I do it with more people than what we're suggesting here, because I do want to lead the way in it. I want people to feel like there's a safe place. And then I want to go back to that Genesis 2:25 verse. I meet with 3 different people every single week to do counseling. And a month ago or so, one of them, we were talking about this authentic, transparent peace and being vulnerable with each other. And we were kind of laughing because I said, isn't it funny? She's married and I'm married. And I was like, isn't it funny how sometimes we would rather get naked and have sex, which is like the most intimate thing you can do with another human being, but we will not tell that other person what's really going deep down inside, because
that's good.
We don't want to shine the light into that darkness, because that seems like too much. But we'll be naked with them, but we won't really be naked. And so we were kind of both
but not spiritually
laughing about how we both have struggled with that, like, and how messed up it seems.
It's kind of backwards.
Yeah, it is kind of backwards. That
That's
I'd
good.
rather be naked physically than naked and bare my soul to you, because what will you do with that?
And then there's not true intimacy.
No.
You're having maybe physical intimacy, but not true intimacy,
Right.
which is the bearing of one's body, soul, and spirit.
Yes, it all goes together.
All goes together.
Yeah.
That you can have partial intimacy and not true intimacy. That's good. That's really good.
And what this verse is talking about, them both being naked, it was spirit, soul, and body.
Yeah.
It was everything, because nobody had sinned yet.
Yep.
And so now we have this broken world that we talked about with Caleb's question, and bad things happen.
Yeah.
And so it feels safer to keep inside the darkness, and it feels safer to not let anybody know the real me. But man, all we're doing is letting the enemy, the evil, keep us trapped, and we will not find victory, like we've said over and over.
Yep. So, authentic with everyone. We're working on that. I think everyone struggles with that one, especially in this social media
I'm going to
age.
pay more attention to that.
Yeah. 'Cause it's hard to know when to share, what to share.
Yeah.
Like, how do you tell somebody your day sucks without ruining their day,
Right.
But again, as best we can, authentic with everyone, transparent with some. Both you and I have a small group that we're a part of that we're transparent with, and then vulnerable to someone. The ATV of relationships: authentic, transparent, vulnerable. Your level of victory will be determined by your level of vulnerability. If you are not sharing the most difficult parts of your life with someone, you will not have victory.
No. And we want victory for you.
Yes, we want you to go into all terrains of
Yes.
life, and you need the all-terrain vehicle to get there: authentic, transparent, vulnerable. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's
All
really
right.
good. I think I want this more for people than they do for themselves, because I've
Sometimes it feels that
experienced
way.
it
Yep.
myself. And I did. I mean, if you go back and listen to the anxiety podcast, I did keep it secret for a long time and let the enemy just keep wreaking havoc.
Yep.
And once I started shining the light in the darkness and getting counseling and talking to other people about it, man, God has just redeemed
Yep.
and restored, and
Yep, it's good.
it's amazing.
Yep. All right. Well, for those of you who are listening, if you've made it this far, thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful and maybe gave you some things to work on in your own life. I know there's some things that we want to work on in our life with this as well, and hope that's been encouraging for you. No matter how you're listening or watching, if you're on YouTube or if you're listening on a podcast app, please, please, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share it with all your friends. We want to help as many people as we can with this, as we're kind of walking life with you. So Sabrina, why don't we end with our marriage mantra? We are united in Christ, unstoppable with Christ, and unbreakable because of Christ. Now it's time for you to go get naked
And party.
We'll see you on the other side. Thank you for listening to the Naked Party Time podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review on all of your podcast platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure and subscribe as well. For more content, go to jeffmanis.com.